In this video, we will continue our second chapter, Nationalism in India. We've already covered some ground, including modern nationalism, the First World War, the Khilafat movement, and non-cooperation. Now, it's time to delve deeper into one of the most powerful protests in Indian history, the non-cooperation Khilafat movement. But before we jump into that, let's take a moment to travel back in time. Close your eyes and imagine a time when India was under British rule and the people were fighting for their freedom. In the midst of this struggle, a remarkable movement emerged. It was a cold January morning in 1921 when the non-cooperation Khilafat movement began. The non-cooperation Khilafat movement was not just a protest, but a revolution that shook the very foundation of the British Empire. It was a time when people from all walks of life came together to demand their rights, and their voices were heard loud and clear. The movement aimed to fight against British colonialism and restore the power of the Khilafat. The movement had gained momentum, and various social groups had joined the cause, but the term non-cooperation meant different things to different people. To study the differing strands within the movement, which refers to the differences and disagreements that emerged within the Indian independence movement, we will learn about: first, the movement in the towns; second, rebellion in the countryside; third, Swaraj in the plantations. To begin with, let us learn about the movement in the towns. In the towns, the initial phase of the movement was driven by the middle class. Thousands of students left government-controlled schools and colleges, while headmasters and teachers resigned in support of the cause. Lawyers gave up their legal practices, and council elections were boycotted in most provinces, except for Madras. So, how did the Indian nationalist movement impact the economy and society in the early 1920s? And what were some of the challenges it faced in its pursuit of independence from British colonial rule? Let's take a look. The movement's economic effects were significant, with foreign goods being boycotted and foreign cloth being burned in large bonfires. The import of foreign cloth dropped significantly between 1921 and 1922, and many merchants and traders refused to deal in foreign goods or finance foreign trade. The production of Indian textile mills and handlooms increased as people started wearing only Indian clothes. However, the movement faced several challenges, causing it to slow down eventually. The cost of khadi cloth, the preferred fabric of the movement, was more expensive than mass-produced mill cloth, making it difficult for the poor to continue boycotting mill cloth. The boycott of British institutions required alternative Indian institutions, which was slow to come up. Students and teachers began returning to government schools, and lawyers resumed their work in government courts. But, despite these challenges, the movement had a lasting impact on the Indian freedom struggle. Also, students' social studies chapters usually contain a lot of theoretical information like dates and names, and remembering this information can be tricky. EduRev provides mind maps to remember all the information quickly and in a structured way. The non-cooperation movement of India was not limited to the cities but had a profound impact on the rural regions as well, where peasants and tribals fought for their rights and against colonial rule in their own way. With this, let us learn about the rebellion in the countryside. The non-cooperation movement had started in the cities and was now spread to the rural regions of India. The movement involved the struggles of peasants and tribals, who were fighting against the oppression of landlords and colonial rule. In the Awadh region, the peasant movement was led by Baba Ramchandra, a former bonded laborer in Fiji who had returned to India to fight for the rights of his fellow peasants. The peasants were protesting against high rents, various taxes, and forced labor, known as Begar, imposed by the landlords. They demanded reduced revenue, abolition of beggar, and social boycott of oppressive landlords. In October 1920, the Oud Kisan Sabha was formed, headed by Jawaharlal Nehru and Baba Ramchandra. The Congress aimed to integrate the Awadh peasant struggle into the non-cooperation movement. However, the peasant movement took forms that Congress leadership did not approve of. Houses of landlords and merchants were attacked, grain hoards were taken over, and rumors of land redistribution were spread. Mahatma Gandhi's name was invoked to justify actions and aspirations. In the tribal regions of Andhra Pradesh, a guerrilla movement had spread in the early 1920s. The colonial government had restricted access to forest resources, affecting the livelihoods and traditional rights of the hill people. They revolted against forced labor for road building, known as beggar. Alluri Sitaram Raju emerged as their leader, claiming special powers and connections to Mahatma Gandhi. He encouraged wearing khadi and giving up drinking but advocated the use of force to achieve Swaraj or self-rule. Guerrilla warfare was waged against British officials and police stations to achieve independence. Raju was eventually captured and executed in 1924, becoming a folk hero. So, despite the different forms of rebellion, the struggles of the peasants and tribals were united in their fight against oppression and exploitation. Lastly, the non-cooperation movement in India also included plantation workers in the tea gardens of Assam. So, let us now take a look at Swaraj in the plantations. In the tea plantations of Assam, the workers' understanding of freedom was the right to move freely and maintain a connection with their villages. However, the Inland Emigration Act of 1859 restricted their movement, keeping them confined to the tea gardens. During the non-cooperation movement, thousands of workers defied authorities and left the plantations, attempting to return to their villages in the hope that Gandhi Raj would give them land. However, due to a railway and steamer strike, these workers never reached their destinations and were caught and beaten by the police. Despite this setback, the workers had their own visions of Swaraj, which were not defined by Congress programs. They imagined a time when suffering and troubles would end, and they would be free from the oppressive conditions they faced. The emotional connection of the workers to the All India agitation was evident in the way tribals chanted Gandhi's name and demanded Swatantra Bharat. They identified with a movement beyond their immediate locality, acting in Gandhi's name or linking their actions to the Congress. The movements of plantation workers were significant, as they challenged the restrictive laws that had been in place for decades. Their struggles would help to pave the way for the eventual independence of India, and the workers would have a vital role to play in the fight for Swaraj. To conclude, the non-cooperation Khilafat movement was an epic battle against oppression and exploitation that shook the British Empire to its core. With different strands of the movement, that is, peasants, tribals, and city dwellers coming together, it spread like wildfire and eventually led to India's independence. Even tea plantation workers in Assam joined the struggle. This movement had a lasting impact on India's economy and society in the early 1920s, showing that people united can create history. It was a remarkable revolution that changed the course of Indian history forever. With this, we come to the end of this video. As we continue to study, we will cover the remaining topics, that is, towards civil disobedience, the limits of civil disobedience, and the sense of collective belonging, in the upcoming videos. Now, make sure to study chapter notes or solve MCQ tests of this chapter on EduRev as a part of your homework. And, not just social studies, you get amazing courses for maths, science, Hindi, English or much more for class 10 on EduRev. Thank you.